to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to everybody who follows sports. Is all fair and level war on a beautiful November the 10th. 2021, Grondo Deportes, Bonjour, de Vice. I learned to talk a little bit slower. That's all fair. And Level War. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, just tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. What a beautiful day. It rained so hard yesterday. Not so much today. Really do appreciate that. As I always tell you, today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade. You can follow Big C Sports on 17 podcast applications from Google, Alexa, Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, GeoSavant out of London, England, where they also get a lot of thunder and lightning out of London, England at times. It's all fair and love and war, but you can follow Big C Sports all over the world. Actually, Podtail and Hubhopper, Stitcher, Radio Line, Luminary, and then other platforms that are coming by 2022, as well as 4 TV platforms, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Give that some praise. Give it praise. Really do appreciate doing Big C Sports Podcast. I love paying homage to my family members on my mother's side. My great-grandmother, called her Mama. She was the matriarch of the family, made sure everyone stuck together, had food always in their bellies, made sure we would always rise and shine. And then my great-grandfather, called him Pop. He played Negro League baseball way back in the day. He was a great mind, and always made sure that there was a lot of moonshine that he could have when he was finished playing with all those grandkids. All fair and level work. Get out of that barn, boy. Get out of that barn. Oh, man, those were some great names back in the day. And then my grandmother, called her Mud Deer. She was a seer, a very savvy business person, could see things and tell you things that are going to happen, as well as my grandfather, Hezekiah, also a seer. They could actually look at people and tell you a lot about those people, and it's very interesting. And my mother, my beautiful mother, started a Head Start program in Northern California and helped us win the Little League Championship of the universe. Really appreciate that. Give us some praise. Give mama some praise. Always saying, rise and shine no matter what you do. Make sure you always rise and shine. Also, on my father's side, the patriarch of the family, Albert Curry, he was a pastor, built 2 churches, also started 2 service stations in Oakland, California. Very smart, savvy businessman. My grandmother, Alberta Curry, on my father's side, she actually helped with the churches and also with the service stations. A very wise business person. And my father, former Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, made sure planes could fly high so you could be safe. It's all fair. And level one, my brother Todd had the bombastic voice. Always said, excuse me, did I break your concentration? I really say, give him all praise. Give him praise. I love paying homage to my beautiful son. Malcolm helps me with my NBA stats. He's all over it, has a lot of knowledge about what's going on in the NBA. My daughter Daisy will help me set up at sporting events for college coaches whenever they came over to the West Coast. Really appreciate her, the most beautiful daughter in the universe. Really appreciate that. And also a Big C with his wealth of knowledge. Really appreciate all the help with Big C Sports. Give them all praise. Give them all some praise. As I say, welcome to the show, Big C Sports, ESPY nominated Big C Sports Podcast. Why ESPY nominated? No scripts. No 3-way teleprompters, no producer in my ear, and I do a lot of help from research over the years. I produce the show, I direct the topics, I broadcast the show, I do all the sound effects. The commercials are done by the agency outside of what I do. I provide stats and storytelling. I do the play-by-play. Steph Curry, 4-3. Sometimes my producer's a little bit late. One more time. Steph Curry, 4-3. It's all fair and level war. My goodness, 50 and 10. That good boy is doing his thing. Really do appreciate being able to cover Golden State Warriors basketball. And then I upload the podcast to 17 podcast applications all over the world. And I never missed a show since starting Big C Sports September 12th, 2015. Give that some praise. I say give that some praise again. My producer, a little bit slow today, but give it some praise. Give that producer some praise. He may be late, but sometimes he's on time. That would be an oxymoron to be late but on time. Hey, if he's the producer, he can say what he wants to say. He's late, but sometimes he's always on time. It's all fair and level war. I love having fun with Big C Sports. I also love quoting the Bible. Since I grew up with the Bible, I know that one of my favorite verses, or two of them, is the book of Genesis 13:15 says, "For all the land that thou seest will I give you, and thy seed forever." And the book of James 4:2 said, "We have not because we ask not." So if you want something to just ask, the answer is either yes or no. Give the Bible some praise. You can give that some praise as we pass the cup. Pass the cup. And don't make any noise with whatever you put in it, if that makes sense to you. I really appreciate, as everybody celebrates Veterans Day, love paying homage to our veterans. You know, we have so much to be grateful for, and our veterans gave everything. Some of them lost their minds trying to defend people who don't even appreciate them. But if you know any veteran going through issues, we do have a Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans, and their loved ones get help. Just call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can give our veterans some praise. Hey, my producer's on it now. Give the veterans some praise. And as Thunder Bolt, it's all fair. And Level War, really love doing Big C Sports. Also, I'm very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, ATTU versus TV of the first place San Francisco Giants. Honestly, you know, they didn't win the World Series, but they did win 107 regular season games. And even if they lost to the Dodgers, you can still give them praise. That's a lot, 107 games. For a team that was not even picked to make the playoffs. They showed that what can happen when you stick together. Even though Bush opposed to decide to step down. What a year for the San Francisco Giants. All fair and level war. There's always next year. You know, I do really appreciate also saying that we want to make sure that we can recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers to help them put their property listings on television, to put people back to work all over this country, just like State Farm does it, McDonald's does it, Nike does it, sports teams are doing it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage and United Wholesale Mortgage, the number 1 and 2 lenders on the wholesale side. It's all fair and level war. So, you know, rates go up and down just like anything else in life. Rates can go up and rates can go down. We want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on in the world of the real estate industry. There's a couple of websites you can go to called ratewatch.com, also the nationalrealestatepost.com, and then mortgagenewsdaily.com. You get all that when you follow Big C Sports Podcast. Give that some praise. Keeping people up to date in real estate as they swipe left and swipe right, trying to lower that mortgage rate. I know a lot of mortgage brokers were trying to lock in their rates today. It's all fair and level war. You know, also when I talk about Big C Sports Podcast, really want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light." Open your cell phones and say, "Play Big C Sports Podcast." You will see our apps pop up all over the world. I really do appreciate the way that has grown with Big C Sports. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, "Let there be light." Just open your cell phone and say, "Play Big C Sports Podcast," and you'll see something, and you can give that some praise. I can't guarantee what you see, but you will see something if your eyes are open. Also, I want to say thank you to Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol and 100% honest game. Sports fans, when you're watching the big game, eat the Big C Burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with what's all those exotic meats. It's all fair and level war, and you got to have exotic meats. I can't confirm or deny what the meats are, but I can confirm that people love it. Isn't that something? When you eat something, you don't know what it is, but you say, that's a tasty burger. That's what the Big C Burger is. Some people get that praise all over the world. Really do appreciate that, the Big C Burger. And I tell you, there's a lot of good things going on in sports. Got some NBA news. Steph Curry dropping 50 points like it's a handshake, and then they're getting the 10 assists, setting the record for the Golden State Warriors. Part of that NBA basketball top 75 players. Also got some college football news. I want to also cover some NFL football at the halfway point of a 17 games, regular season, never been done before. And then also going to bring that up, the NBA games tonight. And then I want to talk about some of the NBA power chasers. Who's chasing the NBA MVP? I have Steph Curry already scheduled in. I love his last name, Curry. He's winning for his last name, Curry alone. You can give the last name Curry some praise. And a lightning bolt, give it all praise. I wish that Charlton Curry could shoot threes like Steph Curry. And maybe I just got to shoot more baskets. Also, in UFC, Cameron Usman, he's gone where no man has gone before as he rumbles, young man rumbles all over the universe, looking for somebody else to knock out. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. In the words of the funky California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on 17 podcast applications all over the universe. Really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. When you think about sports, and sometimes we take for granted the international federations that govern sports bodies and where they're headquartered. When you think about the growth of sports and the federations, France was a major influence upon the international, legalization of sports and the administrations that cover them, the governing bodies. The French, the roots of the French Olympics made the French the first language of the International Sports Administration, and the desire to gain recognition by the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, in the entry into the Olympics. When you think about it, started back then in France. In 1894, the IOC was formed actually in Paris, France. And everybody talks about Paris and think about the Tour de France, think about soccer. But in 1894, the IOC was formed in Paris. When you think about 1896, the first modern Summer Olympics in Athens, Greece. So that was formed there. And then the International Cycling Union in Paris in 1900. There's a lot of good things that have happened in the world of international federations. And another major one that happened in 1932, FIFA. When you think about FIFA and the headquarters, it started in Zurich, Switzerland. So everybody has the idea of everything happening first in the United States, but it really didn't. And I know we talk about the Olympics all the time. We just finished the Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. But the IOC was rocked by some corruption in the 1990s. Okay, so even though there was about 10 country members that were dealing with some things that people wonder about shenanigans in sports and why we have committees. I know we talk about the NFL also and what happened in the Pittsburgh Steelers game with the Chicago Bears, and there were some people that were just talking about whether it was a personal foul that it did cost the Chicago Bears a first down, and the taunting rule. There's also, when you look about Mac Jones, he had a play that some people call Bush League, and it caused little injury to a player. So in Carolina, now you can get into it what you want to, but going back to the 1800s, there were always committees and we have the NFLPA today that always looked into it to make sure that people were doing the right thing. So give the international federations and Olympic committees some praise, because it started a lot of what we do now to monitor and make sure that sports leagues are doing things the right way. So I really appreciate that. You can never make everybody happy, but it is nice when we have the committees that will work together to make sure that there is a standard for what is a foul, what is a personal foul, what is a taunting, whatever it is. It should never decide a game. Can people give that praise? It should never decide a game. People bet on sports, and you want to see a flag is a flag and a penalty is a penalty, no matter where you are or how you look at it. So that's something that a lot of people get into also. I want to touch on something that's happening in the world of the NBA, because I always, I love the NBA. There's an NBA basketball universe that we talk about, the power players that make up the NBA. We go back to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, or Magic Johnson and Showtime with the LA Lakers. And of course, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Byron Scott, James Worthy. There's so many players that led the Lakers to becoming Showtime. Detroit Bad Boys. Dennis Rodman, Isaiah Thomas, of course, Lambeer. You had the Boston Celtics with all the great history of players. And when you think about Bill Russell, 13 NBA championships, I mean, who can beat that? That will probably never, ever be broken. But today's NBA star power, you look at Steph Curry, is the early MVP leader. Ja Morant also enters the conversation. But you know, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have right now Nikola Jokic. They're always players. You have so many great players. That Dollar Dame, he's always in the conclusion and the talk about who's going to be the MVP. But when you think about a player in Steph Curry dropping 27 points a game, 6 assists per game, and then if you think about it, shooting 5 threes per game. Curry's became the first player this season to score 50 points in a game. He lit it up against the Atlanta Hawks on Tuesday night as the Golden State Warriors improved to an NBA best 9-1 record on the season. It's the first time in Curry's career that he's posted 50 points and 10 assists in the same game as he unseated the great Wilt the Still Chamberlain as the oldest player in the history to do that in a game. And you got to give that some praise for the Golden State Warriors. I want to give Steph Curry some praise as he's done what no Warrior has done before. He deserves some praise. And you know, his numbers are just going to keep growing. They're going to keep growing. He's not slowing down. He's only 33 years old. He has another 10 years to play if he wants to. And when you think about what he does, he always runs around the court. He never settles. He never sits still. He plays defense, plays offense. He came into the game against the Atlanta Hawks having been held to 20 or fewer points in 4 consecutive games for the first time since 2014. That's a good night for every NBA player. That's a great night for an all-star player to average 20 points a game. The first time that he was held to 20 points or fewer in 4 consecutive games since 2014. And his shooting by historic numbers has been relatively sporadic at times. Still, he's the early leader in the MVP race. As of Tuesday, when you look at some sports books out of Vegas, they had him at plus 325 to win the award, followed by Kevin Durant in the Brooklyn Nets, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they're at plus 600 and 650. But when you think about where the money goes, Durant has been the league's best player thus far, but Curry's impact with Golden State is plus 12.3 points per 100 possessions. And with Curry, this is where I look at him, because when you think about the Warriors alone, you got guys like Rick Barry that you got to mention him with, and Wilt the Still Chamberlain. But when you think about it, his own numbers, he can break his own numbers. He's the only unanimous MVP of the NBA ever. You think about all the great, Clyde the Glide Frazier, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem. Steph Curry is the only unanimous MVP in the history of the game. The only unanimous MVP. That's impressive. He's still got years to go. And when you think about the Golden State success, is a lot of it's contributed to him because he doesn't have his splash brother right now in Klay Thompson. Who knows how good Klay's going to be when he comes back. But without the other part of his splash brother, they are still 9-1, most likely to go 10-1 tonight, and he's in the early driver's seat for the NBA MVP. That's why no matter what you do in Golden State Warriors, you find Steph Curry, he's a must-see. He's a crowd pleaser. He never gets in trouble. In the earlier part of his career, has some ankle injuries. But right now, he's playing like the Warrior that a lot of people want to see. Warriors, come out and play. So I really love giving Steph Curry a lot of praise when it comes to NBA basketball. And there's another player. I'm not going to say that Carmelo Anthony is an MVP. But when you look at him averaging 17.6 points a game and 3 rebounds a game, a lot of people were saying he shouldn't even be playing. When you think about his hot start to the season, his contributions are great, with LeBron James being on the sideline lately, out for a while with an abdominal string, and then Russell Westbrook trying to find his groove. The Lakers have become really reliant on Carmelo Anthony's shooting and scoring. I mean, he came out of Syracuse winning a national championship with Jimmy Boeheim, but he's been so consistent in the league. He's hit 7 3-pointers in the Lakers win over Charlotte on Monday. He's shooting 52% from 3, including 64% at home. Entering play tonight, he's shooting 58% from 3s over his last 6 games. Has made 3.5 3-pointers per game, tied with Grayson Allen for the 4th highest mark in the league. Only Steph Curry and Buddy Hield and C.J. McCollum have made more total 3s than Carmelo Anthony. That's why I wanted to bring Carmelo Anthony into the story and give that good boy some praise because he's doing it when a lot of people said he should have retired when he left the Portland Trailblazers. I love the effort that you get out of Carmelo every single night. I want to pick up another young player. Has future written all over him. Ja Morant. 26 points a game, 7 assists per game, and also just shooting about 2 threes per game. He's doing this on a nightly basis that leaves your hands on your head, shaking your head, sometimes thinking, what did I just see? If you can imagine what he's going to be like when he starts going to the weight room, when he does what Michael Jordan did when Michael Jordan came into the league and put on more size so he couldn't be bumped around as much, it just makes you more physically strong. De'Aaron Fox has been in the weight room, got him a little bit stronger with the Sacramento Kings. Steph Curry's been in the weight room. He's a lot stronger now for Golden State than he was when he came into the league. So young players kind of get in the weight room and realize when your body's a lot stronger, it gives you a chance to go through the growing pains. Look at Giannis Antetokounmpo, what he's been doing. Look at his physique when he came into the league and what he is now. So I think about Ja Morant. Should be one of the top 5 of the MVP conversation. And near the top of the MVP league player race also. Now, he's probably already too good, as some people think, to be so young. The numbers to know is 37%. That's impressive. From 3. That's amazing. And he's young. There's another player, Morant's impossible to keep out of the lane. He's had to just lift more weights will be even more dangerous. I really like the way that he plays. So he's a young player, but he's dropping 26 tonight. Has a lot of game that we're going to see grow in the NBA. Look at another player. That's everybody MVP. You go MVP when they say the Brooklyn Nets, Kevin Durant. Of course, Kevin Durant's going to get a standing ovation because he's so consistent, and he's shown that since coming out of Texas, dropping 30 points a game, 9 rebounds a game, and I think about what he means to Brooklyn. There's no Kyrie Irving, but he's probably been the league's best player this season. He and Steph Curry. I mean, anyone can argue for who, but he scores a few more points per game than Curry. But he's leading the league in scoring, and he has to do it under more difficult circumstances. There's no Kyrie Irving, and probably won't be this year. And then James Harden is just trying to get his groove back because the league is taking away his fop, his swinging the ball under a defender's arms and call that a foul, a defensive foul. They're not giving him that this year. So he has to find a way to be a more pure shooter and not count on the trickery that the NBA has cracked down on over the last couple, really over this year, I would say, maybe starting last year, but definitely this year. So the Nets don't have anyone other than Durant right now to go to, and I mean that's going to hurt them going down the stretch. Durant's having to isolate on his possessions, which is it's his increase over last season. And when you think about his ability to get to the basket, it's somewhat compromised. He can bring the ball to the court, but Harden can too. But if Harden can't shoot the ball, and his shot is off, unlike last year when he could shoot from the moon, then people can double team Durant more and make Harden shoot the ball. So that's if Harden can keep that 30-point per game pace, that's going to help him also. Durant has never really needed anyone to help him. He can create space on his own, but oftentimes he played with players that had a chance to help him get open. He doesn't have that this year. So when I think about that, those are the players that I'm looking at in the chase for the league NBA MVP. I still think when you look at it overall, it's going to come down to a guy like Steph Curry because he's so consistent. And to hit that 50-point night that he did against the Atlanta Hawks, and it's in the big media market in San Francisco, he's going to get a lot of praise for that because the media is all over what Steph Curry does with the Golden State Warriors. So no matter who you like for the MVP, my early choice is Steph Curry. I'm going to give him praise. Also, Durant's up there too. And then Ja Morant. I like those 3 players that they are always in the talk about who's going to be the best player in the NBA. But I think what helps Curry, they'll most likely be close if they don't win the NBA championship. I think they're going to be penciled in the NBA Western Conference MVP, or at least in the NBA Western Conference Championship. If LeBron James comes back healthy, maybe you're looking at them having a chance to be in the swing of things to have a chance to get to the West. But Utah has a good record. They're rolling strong. I think Denver's going to be making some noise by the time we get down to it. Dallas, I want to say Dallas will get stronger. But when you go to the top teams, you're clearly looking at the Golden State Warriors. I don't think Phoenix is going to be there this year, but Golden State, the Lakers. You also got to look at Denver and Utah. I mean, there's other teams that on the path of the playoff, but when you come to teams that would be the top teams in the playoffs, those are the guys that I look at. Tonight's NBA schedule on a beautiful Wednesday, November the 10th. On a hump day, we have Washington. They're at Cleveland. That game is already underway. Brooklyn, just talked about Kevin Durant. They're at Orlando. That game is already tipped off in Orlando. And Toronto's at Boston. The Boston Celtics have been playing inconsistent basketball lately, but they'll try to smooth things over. And time will tell how well they will get things rolling in the month of November coming up on Turkey Day. Milwaukee, the defending NBA champion, Milwaukee Bucks. They're at the New York Knickerbockers at Madison Square Garden. What a great scene in New York always. When the Knicks are relevant, the crowd's amazing at New York all the time anyway. But when they have something to talk about, the Knicks got to get their groove back and try to get back to where they were last year when they made the playoffs, all fair and level. You have Detroit, the Detroit Bad Boys. They are at the Houston Rockets. Dallas with Luka Doncic at Chicago. Chicago surprising everybody in the NBA this year. They're one of the front runners in the Eastern Conference to get in a playoff bid. Really like the way they've turned things around there. And Charlotte is at Memphis. The great Ja Morant. Going to see him go up against Melo Ball and see who can come out on top of that. Looking at, because of the game down in Memphis already tipped off, should be a win for the Memphis Grizzlies. OKC is at New Orleans. The Pelicans, of course, they're going to have their growing pains down in New Orleans. They just will, because when your star player is banged up, you're always going to have some injuries on basketball, but you really got to count on players, and they haven't been able to count on them. So it's all fair and level. Where Sacramento Kings down in San Antonio have a hard time winning down in San Antonio over the years. The Kings have, but they come off of a 2-game losing streak at home, so maybe getting out of town is going to do them some good as they go down to San Antonio and try to get a win down there. Indiana Pacers up in Mile High playing the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic got suspended by the league for a game, for a Bush League push. It's all fair and level war. There's a lot of junk going on around that in conversations and chatter boxes, but they'll be all over it. The league will be all over it. Portland, Dallas down in the Valley of the Suns, the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul, Dallas, must see. Get your tickets ready. And then Devin Booker, always ready to see DeAndre Ayton. And then the Miami, they're at the Los Angeles Lakers. Tyler Herro coming to town. Bam Adebayo. No LeBron James, as far as I know, to be in that one. But you should have Anthony Davis back in Westbrook. And Carmelo Anthony, he's been carrying the load for the Los Angeles Lakers. And then Golden State Warriors taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. 7 o'clock p.m. tip-off here in Northern California. The crowd would be looking for Curry to go for 50 again. Will they do it? I doubt it. 50 again, but he'll probably get his usually 30 points a night. It's just the crowd loves the work that Steph Curry does, and I do too. They always give him praise over there at the beautiful Chase Center in downtown San Francisco. So that's your NBA basketball schedule for tonight. Talking about all the great things that are happening in the chase for the NBA championship. And it all starts, in my opinion, on the West Coast. And, of course, you have defending NBA champion, the Milwaukee Bucks. They are prime time. They're a little bit slow getting out of the blocks. They're going to have to get their groove back. It's all fair and love and war. I really do appreciate that. Going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as a Big C timeout. When I come back, going to talk some more sports in the NBA basketball universe. Also going to get us some football. And does anyone want to fight Cameron Usman? I don't want to. Man, he'll knock anybody out. The Nigerian Nightmare. He's the best guy in the MMA, and he's looking for anyone somewhere in the universe, in the galaxy far, far away. In the words of the former California Governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast, and 17 podcast applications all over the world as well. Really do appreciate that. I'm going to run into, there's a fighter by the name, we've talked about the NBA and how I think Steph Curry is going to be the MVP this year. It's going to be Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, but don't be surprised if Kamaru Usman decides to win the NBA championship because he'll beat people up But I really like talking about how he's a mixed martial arts fighter. Just like Steph Curry in the NBA, these guys are must-see TV. Just like Durant, must-see TV. John Morant's also must-see TV. But Cameron Usman in the UFC, I think Leon Edwards or Vicente Lecrae is after the UFC 268 title defense. Usman, he's looking at Edwards as maybe a next worthy opponent. I know there's a lot of things that go on in the UFC. Usman defeated Colby Covington, unanimous decision in the UFC just over the weekend, UFC 269 at Madison Square Garden in New York City. And he's beat him twice. I mean, solid fighters. Covington, not at the level of Usman. No one is. Usman's looking ahead to his next challenger in that division. And there's some matchups there. Leon Edwards goes out to get a job done against Jorge Masvidal. That fight has been postponed. I guess Masvidal has something going on that they haven't really talked about it. But when you think about it, I really like if Leon Edwards if he can beat Masvidal, if they put that fight together right now, it's been on pause. But if Usman has to find someone to fight. But I think about it, Usman is probably, you can't say it probably, you only get to so many wins before you lose. But if he gets to fight Edwards, then they're dealing with the Edwards-Masvidal fight, but it's been canceled. It was going to take place December 11th, but rescheduled after Masvidal suffered an undisclosed injury. But I like what happened with Usman. He's a good fighter, Nigerian Nightmare they call him. He's really the name for the UFC right now. And if you put him in the octagon versus anyone, he's always going to be the favorite. So Cameron Usman looking to rumble, young men rumble, looking to fight anyone all over the planet. I really like the way he prepares for the UFC. And you have so many great fighters. It's a brutal business, but he's a guy that whenever he shows up, he's must-see TV, and he fights from all over the world, whether it's in Dubai or Las Vegas or over the weekend at Madison Square Garden. It's all fair and level. We're going to come back and talk about some football, and everybody loves NFL. We're going to talk about some of the top teams in the NFL universe. In the words of the former California governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C Pause, also known as the Big C Timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 17 podcast applications all over the universe. Really appreciate that. I'm going to touch on the midway point of the 2021 NFL season. 17 games, regular season. That's unprecedented. The Arizona Cardinals, in my opinion, right now have the best team in the NFL. They have the best record in the league, and they sit atop the NFC with Green Bay Packers, the Los Angeles Rams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Dallas Cowboys all behind them. Now, when you think about the loss that the Cardinals had, it was the last, I guess you could call it within the last 20 seconds of the game, they lost at home to the Green Bay Packers. Kyler Murray had a hitch in his giddy up in that game. It was an interception. A lot of people were wondering how in the world did that happen, but it happens. It's football. The Green Bay Packers went in there, won. You look at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, they got beaten in Los Angeles by the Arizona Cardinals. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they went into Los Angeles and got beaten by the Rams. Dallas Cowboys went into Tampa, got beaten by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you look at those top teams in the NFL from Arizona, Green Bay, Los Angeles Rams, Tampa, and Dallas. Well, I mean, Green Bay has beaten everybody in the NFC that's in playoff contention, except they lost. I mean, their loss came to the Saints. I'm going to say the Saints are in contention, but they're not a threat, in my opinion, not right now. Who knows what's going on with Odell Beckham Jr.? Haven't heard about what's happened with him, but I still like the Arizona Cardinals as a top team so far. And then you look at in the AFC, there's a lot of parity in the AFC. Baltimore Ravens, I think, are the best team so far. Tennessee Titans, they don't have touchdown Derrick Henry. That might catch up to them later in the year, especially as we get into the playoffs. I like Baltimore. I know Buffalo had a hitch in their giddy up, had a speed bump against Jacksonville, but Buffalo is a very good team. Don't count out the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not what they were last year, but they just have to get their groove back as all fair and level were. But I'm going to look at the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. Big C's thoughts. They are 5-3. They're going to win the AFC East unless that Jedi Knight of a coach, Bill Belichick, has some Jedi some Jedi juice up his sleeves to give the Josh Allen called Gatorade. It's all fair and level war. But Buffalo making a solid case as the best team in the AFC until they had a speed bump at Jacksonville. That might hurt them a little bit, but it's just one game. Quarterback Josh Allen is the real deal. A lot of weapons on his team. And I think when you look at a team like Buffalo, they're not really expected to win the AFC. The talk of it coming into the year was about Kansas City and Cleveland and also Baltimore. Well, we're at the halfway point now. I still like the way the Buffalo Bills are playing. You can't count them out. Their defense is a step ahead of last season's, and they can give a lot of trouble to a lot of teams in the NFL. I still don't understand the loss at Jacksonville. Maybe that was a Las Vegas special, if that makes sense to you. What I do feel like is they're going to have a couple more stumbling blocks along the way against some top opponents. Buffalo will do great if they could get a playoff game at home. Usually up in Orchard Park is right around 30 degrees on kickoff, and the playoffs right around December, actually about January when they host playoff games up there. Miami Dolphins in the AFC East, they are 2-7, probably going to get beat down again on Thursday night. The Dolphins are not a playoff team that most people thought they would be coming into the year. After winning 10 games in 2020, they seem to be ready to take that next step, to boldly go where they haven't gone in a long time. The Buffalo Bills, the AFC East title for them. I think as long as New England is kept at bay, but you can't cut out Bill Belichick either. No one thought that they would win. I can't say no one, but that was an impressive win at Carolina and an impressive win on the road at the Chargers. So on the road, they've been more successful than they have been at home. All fan level war. What are you going to do about Big Tua Tagovailoa? Hasn't been really healthy enough to develop. I know they're still hoping they can find a way to get Deshaun Watson on the team for the Miami Dolphins. All fair and level war. When I think about going down the stretch, the Dolphins, they're not a good team. They need to get, if they can, another quarterback. I know Brian is saying that he's going to stick with Tua, but I think most people see the writing on the wall. The AFC East also, the New England Patriots are 5-4. They are physically tough. They've been established over 20 years with Bill Belichick at the helm. The Patriots bringing along rookie quarterback Mac Jones, playing a lot better than I even thought he would play. I thought they should have stuck with Cam Newton. I still believe that. However, their early season struggles were a result of sloppy ball security and the failure to come up with a big play at crucial situations. But when you think about their defense, they're very solid on defense. They beat up on Jacksonville, and they got the pick six against the Chargers. So their defense can carry them. Their offense doesn't have to be that great. Just don't turn the ball over. When you think about for Jones in the offense, he's done enough to keep the offense running smoothly. Their defense has been consistent all year long. He's not going to be Tom Brady, but you just don't need them to turn it over. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get to 10 wins this year, the AFC, and they may knock off the Bills, if that makes sense to you. It's hard to believe that, but it's true. The New York Jets in the AFC East, they are 2-6. The Jets are who we thought they are, or who they were. Jets fly high when you have enough jet fuel, but they're inconsistent. They beat up on the Cincinnati Bengals, and then they got beaten up on by the Indianapolis Colts, who are probably at the same level of play as Cincinnati. They're a young team. They're playing like it also. They showed some promise in beating some good teams at home. The Titans and the Bengals suffered 3 ugly road losses, and they were outscored a combined 125-43. That's not good for Robert Saleh's defense and their offense. Zach Wilson, he's going to be ready to make a difference. He hasn't played up to his draft status at number 2 overall. Look at what Justin Fields has been doing in Chicago. I mean, he looks a lot like the number 1 overall pick. Mac Jones is playing okay, but he's had some mistakes too, as well as Fields. But Zach Wilson hasn't really played up to the level. And then, Lance haven't gotten the chance really in San Francisco to play or start because Jimmy G's been playing a little bit better, if that makes sense to you. But I still look at the Jets, and they're going to be at the bottom of the pile for the AFC East. When you look at the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, let's go to boys. Who does not like what you have in Superman Jackson? Superman Jackson, Lamar Jackson. Go to crowd him. You want to crowd him? Crowd him. Crowd him as the MVP of the league. If he keeps playing the way he's been playing, and he's definitely playing at an MVP level, Superman Jackson, a one-man wrecking crew. Baltimore, 14 players on the IR, including 5 starters who are out for the season. And the Ravens have the second best record in the AFC because of Jackson and how he makes big plays with that cape. He has that Superman cape. He's not real. He's Superman. It's all fair and love and war. But he's led, for people to say, oh, he can't come from behind. He's led 3 comebacks from double digits. And he knows how to play. If he's on television, he's must-see TV. I think Jackson's the second quarterback since the 1970 merger to rank in the top 10 in both passing and rushing at any point in week 9 or later. Randall Cunningham out of UNLV was the other, and that was in 1990. Based on that alone, you got to give Superman Jackson some praise. Give him praise, praise, praise. He really is a player that so many media pundits said, oh, he should be defensive back. Does he have what it takes to play quarterback? Yes, he does. He's an amazing player, and most likely in the driver's seat because Patrick Mahomes is not playing his best. And then Tom Brady is a good passer, but Tom Brady's not a threat to run. Tom Brady has Pro Bowl wide receivers all around him. Lamar Jackson doesn't. That's why I say Lamar Jackson is going to rush for over 1,000 yards this year and throw for over 3,500 yards again. That'll put him over 4,500 yards of total offense. And you get it on the ground and through the air with Superman Jackson. I think about Baltimore. They've held 3 teams to 17 points or less, including shutting down Justin Herbert, last year's NFL rookie offensive player of the year, and the Chargers. They beat them down pretty decisively. When you think about it, I just like the Ravens' mantle. They're a physical team. They will most likely win 12 games this year, maybe 13. Again, the toughest part of the schedule is still ahead of them, but they won't face a team with a losing record over the final 7 weeks of the season. So if anything, that might cost them a game. But when they got Superman Jackson coming from behind, my goodness, he's the real deal. Cincinnati Bengals 5-4 in the AFC North Division. 5-4. No one really expected this from Cincinnati, but also no one expected that Cincinnati would drop their last 2 games. Especially, they almost beat the Green Bay Packers. A couple of missed field goals cost them in that game. But both the offense and the defense, they've had moments of being very dominant in the first 7 weeks. Quarterback Joe touchdown Burrow has been solid. Rookie wideout receiver Jamar Chase is the real deal. He's been electrifying. While the defense, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. And then you just wonder, are we pushing them too soon? They're going to have to prove it over the year that they can really can they get to even 9 wins this year? I don't know. I was thinking they would, but I'm not so sure now because they had the loss to the Jets. And that's enough said in itself. And then they were blown out by Cleveland. Cleveland, this is for you. Cleveland's 5-4. Got rid of Odell Beckham Jr. The Browns are probably better off without a wide receiver. That makes feel like, no matter what people think about these prima donna receivers, everybody says, give me the ball. I'm open. I'm always open. Give me the ball. I learned watching Jerry Rice a long time ago. He's had more touchdowns than anyone in the history of the NFL, over 200. Give Jerry Rice some praise for that. Saw him running touchdowns. He wasn't in the game, but he was running a sprint the whole length of the field in Levi Stadium before the 49ers and Chargers kicked off. But Jerry was always blocking when he wasn't getting the ball. So now without wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., they saw what they could do. 41-16 over Cincinnati. For the first time this season, the Browns looked at the team that people thought they would be. Quarterback touchdown Baker Mayfield played his best game of the season, spreading the ball around while running backs got going again behind Nick Chubb. And I think Beckham's a solid player, but you got to block if you don't have the ball. So wherever he goes, it's going to be the same thing. If he doesn't want to block when he doesn't have the ball, going to be a problem. Cleveland may just win maybe 10 games this year. Their defense is better than last season. Their offense behind Mayfield, they seem, at least against the game in Cincinnati, to have found their groove. Pittsburgh Steelers, they got a feeling the Steelers are going to the playoffs. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. Isn't that something? Never had a losing season. 5-3 on the season. The Steelers will go as far as the offensive line takes them, and also running behind Harris, Najee Harris, not Franco Harris. They had the loss at Green Bay. The offensive line started to play better, and they're a balanced team. Big Ben Roethlisberger, not the escape artist that he used to be. Can't throw the ball 60 yards downfield, but he can dump it off. He knows how to read defenses. They got to get yards after the catch with their receivers and hand the ball off to Najee Harris. Their offensive line got to do what they did with Franco Harris back in the day. Give him a block. he can find the open seam and run through it. I really like how they have a coach who's just straightforward with you. Everyone knows what Tomlin thinks because he's a straight shooter, and that's what people like about him. Remember, they had that Week 1 win against Buffalo. Keep that in mind when the playoffs come around. They are a very good team, especially the Steelers can kick the ball. You know, their field goal kicking can kick it from 50 yards out, too. AFC South, Houston, Texas, they are 1-8. My goodness. What can you say about them? They're one win going through a rebuild season. We don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. They should have gotten rid of him already so they could start rebuilding with somebody else. That's really costing their whole season. Just being indecisive with Deshaun Watson. Tyrod Taylor looked pretty sharp over the first 6 quarters. Played before injuring his left hamstring. He's always injured. So, kind of snake-bitten Houston, Texas, all fair and love more. Indianapolis Colts, 4-5. Not the Indianapolis Colts that everyone was clamoring for them to be this year. I think a lot of people expected a lot more from the Colts. At the same time, quarterback Carson Wentz said they lacked after blowing a 19-point lead in the final 18 minutes against Baltimore in Week 5. Cornerback Kenny Moore II said, again, after they squandered a 14-point lead in their overtime loss to Tennessee, they're not consistent. They got to play more consistent. Carson Wentz with the interceptions back-to-back turnovers, that didn't help them. So they're under 500. I don't have a lot of faith in them. We'll see what happens as the season progresses. I'm surprised that Jacksonville beat Buffalo. I think that was a shock of the week. They're 2-6 now. The offense has worked to get everything they could get out of them. They're a young team. They're averaging only 17 points a game. That's 30th in the league, 333 yards per game. That's 23rd in the league. Say no more. Trevor Lawrence making progress, but dealing with injuries on the offensive line. But he's going to take his lumps now. By year 3, he's going to be a solid quarterback. Maybe, just maybe, they can win 5 games this year. Can't guarantee it, but they're already at the 2, and we're at the halfway part of the season. Tennessee Titans, man, it hurts. They don't have touchdown Derrick Henry, but they're peaking in offense and defense. A surprise win in Los Angeles over the Rams. They started off slowly with turnovers. Tennessee's defense has generated 11 turnovers in their past 6 games. Safety Kevin Boyard is responsible for 5 of them, so he's a playmaker on defense. When you think about it, Week 9, Harold Landry, he's evolved into a top-level pass rusher, as shown by his 9 sacks thus far this season. He's on course for 18 sacks. Isn't that something? Quarterback Ryan Tannehill's been doing his thing. Receiver A.J. Brown, he's a big-time playmaker. And they don't have Derrick Henry, and that's going to hurt them also, I believe, coming down the stretch. They got to get some more help out of their defense. And they bring in Adrian Peterson. Isn't that something? He scored another touchdown in the game. Who thought he would have put the laces on the shoes back in? AFC West, Denver Broncos, they are 5-4. And what can you say about the Broncos? They got rid of their all-pro linebacker, 8-time all-pro linebacker in Von Miller. And then they go out and get a win over the Dallas Cowboys. The Broncos can be part of a playoff conversation if they play offense with quarterback touchdown Teddy Bridgewater under center the way they did at Dallas. They're 5-0 in games when Bridgewater has spent 50% of the time under center, 0-4 when they lean on personnel other than him in the shotgun. In the shotgun, 70% of the time, they do everything better with Bridgewater under center. I said that when the season started. They got to keep him healthy, though. This is a team in Denver. Might win 10 games on the season. They can finish strong because they'll have a lot more chemistry after this surprising win over the Dallas Cowboys. Kansas City Chiefs 5-4. Man, they could be 4-5. Their offensive problems run deep. They have 36 points in their past 3 games. That's not good. Touchdown Patrick Mahomes. They were averaging 30 points a game last year. They got 36 combined in their last 3 games. Think about that. Touchdown Patrick Mahomes hasn't been playing the way that he's accustomed to. The Chiefs have to get out of their slump. You can't blame it all on Patrick Mahomes, even going back to the Super Bowl 55 last year. Some of his turnovers, guys have the ball hit them in the hands, and then they somehow, instead of knocking the ball to the ground if they can't catch it, the ball bounces in the air, becomes an interception. That's not all his fault. Over the past 5 weeks, he's 28th in QBR and 29th in completion percentage and 31st in yards per attempt. They got to figure out how they're going to get back on the winning side because their defense is just not that good. The Chiefs, will they even win 10 games this year? They're going to be maybe a wild card team. They have too many problems to realistically think they can play better than 500 football. I'm going to give them 10 wins this year because I think they'll figure things out. The Las Vegas Raiders, man, they needed the game against the New York Giants as much as they needed any game this year. They're 5-3. They could be 6-2. Think about that as we get close to the playoffs. Their offense can be very good. Their defense is much improved. Quarterback touchdown Derek Carr is on pace for 5,500 yards passing and almost 30 touchdowns. He's accurate. They have a good running game, but they were off against the Giants. Of course, the news about Henry Ruggs III and the car crashing in, I mean, that had to play on the mind of a lot of players. I think about their defensive side of the ball. Max Crosby has 5 sacks himself and pressures and continues working hard. He's good on defense. They have veteran quarterback Casey Hayward Jr. playing at a level not seen in the parts since Nnamdi Asomugha. So their defense is going to be okay, but they can't have turnovers. That turnovers really cost them in New York City. But I think the Raiders are a 10-win team this year. And looking, man, can they win the AFC West? I don't know. Because I still think Kansas City will find a way to pull a rabbit out of their hat and catch them down the stretch. But it's right there for them to win. It's all fair and level. The Chargers, when you think about the Los Angeles Chargers, you got to give some praise to the Lightning Bolts. Give them praise. They have the best Lightning Bolt in the NFL. I think they're the only ones with a Lightning Bolt. But they have a quarterback star in Justin Herbert. He struggled in 2 recent losses, 18-35, 223 yards, and 2 interceptions against the Patriots and Bill Belichick. 8 of 22 for, think about this. In week 8, 22 of 39, not even 200 yards, had 195 yards and a pick against the Ravens. But he got to the occasion in the win against Philadelphia, 32 of 38, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's 84% completion. So if he can do that again, 16 of 16 in the red zone, then that's going to help them get up to the top. And they're going to compete for the AFC West title. It's just, they will. I like that team. I really feel they're going to win 11, maybe 12 games this year. When you look at the defense, they're going to have to rely on Chris Harris Jr., and Nasar Adderley, backup Trevon Campbell and Mark Webb Jr., and the newly signed Keandre Thomas to plug in the holes in the secondary. Their defense can be good at times. In the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys, how about them Cowboys, 6-2? And they had just a flat-out bad game against Denver. 30-16 loss. They were down 30-0 at a time in that game. The Cowboys, they're a contender. You just got to throw that game out of the books. This team looks as talented as any they've had since the 1990s teams of Aikman and Smith and also Irvin, them good old boys, and Harper, including the 2007-16 and 16 team that had home field advantage in the playoffs, and the 2014 team that could score on anybody. Touchdown Dak Prescott, planted at MVP level except for the last game, coming off the injury. Running back Ezekiel Elliott, he's gotten his chest in the win. Receivers Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, they are one-on-one nightmares. I really like this Dallas team. You just got to scrap what happened in the last game. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas gets 12 wins out of this year. I don't think a lot of people predicted 12 wins at the start of the season, but they're a team. I'm not going to call them a Super Bowl team, but they're definitely going to get into the playoffs, and that's big for Dallas. Once you get to the playoffs, it's any man's game. And, of course, Dak Prescott is back. The Cowboys have a great fan base. They get followed by everybody. Look for the Dallas Cowboys to make some noise when they get into the playoffs, as they will win the NFC in the East. The Giants 3-6. What a win over the Raiders. Wasn't expecting that. Daniel Jones, the defense underperforms at times, but they got to win over the Raiders because they force turnovers. The Giants are a long shot at best to be a playoff contender. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're 3-6, and they got a lucky win over the Raiders. The Raiders cost themselves that game again. They've been having some internal problems because of what happened to their team over the past week. Running back Saquon Barkley, wide receiver Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton have all missed the last 3 games. Rookie wide receiver Kadarius Toney missed 2. They just have a tough season ahead of them. If they win 7 games, that's a good season for the Giants, and that's bad news when 7 wins is a good season for you. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're 3-6. My goodness, they played the Chargers tough. Jalen Hurts, when you think about it, for the bulk of the first half, he's carrying this team. He has sometimes a lot placed on his shoulders, but that's how he's going to get better. He's a good quarterback. 5 quarterbacks that completed 80% or more of their passes against the Eagles this season. Their defense lost that game against the Chargers. And Philadelphia allowed just 6 quarterbacks to hit that completion rate between 1950 and 2020. That's bad. They got to play better defense. Look for the Eagles to get maybe 7 to 8 wins this season. They have one of the easiest closing schedules in the league and should be able to finish at least on a positive note. Washington football team 2-6. Even if Ryan Fitzpatrick, the quarterback, remains healthy, likely still will be the case. Fitzpatrick, who turns 39 years old this month, always viewed as a short-term option. They won't go out and get Cam Newton. Taylor Heineke might be the guy they want to lean behind. But it's all fair and level war. Washington needs to fill the gap and find a guy. They had Kirk Cousins, let him go over to Minnesota. But right now, this team is just not a good team. You look at the defensive side, veteran corner William Jackson III and second-year defensive end Chase Young. They're legit, but they struggled to get their linebackers playing the way they thought they were going to play this year. If Washington wins 6 games this year, that'll be a surprise. The NFC North, the Chicago Bears are 3-6. They struggle offensively. The Bears' offense has been kind of stuck in neutral, but you got to love the way they've been playing the last couple of games, even though they lost to the Niners. And they lost on the road to the Steelers. I love what Fields is doing. They got to find ways to win games instead of lose games. Chicago was flagged 12 times in Week 9. Monday night's lost to Pittsburgh. Some of those calls were somewhat suspect. To make matters worse, the defense is showing some cracks. Long considered the strength of that team. The unit's been reeling in the past couple of games without pass rusher Khalil Mack. Justin Fields can be really dynamic. Imagine how good he's going to be in year 2 and 3. I think he's shown his greatness on the ground and through the air. The Bears may get to 8 wins this year. Not enough for the playoffs, but they are a young team. Detroit, what do you say about Detroit? You say Detroit Bad Boys, but that would be for football. The Detroit Bad Boys, you don't want to be called the Bad Boys when it comes to football. And they're not going to go 0-16. Somebody will get it left. I guess they'll get jumped on. Come on. The Lions hit 0-8 moving to Detroit in 1934. It last happened in 2008 during the infamous 0-16 season. They got beat 44-6 by the Eagles on Halloween. I don't think they're going to go win this. Jared Goff's going to make sure of that. They'll probably get at least a win this year. Green Bay Packers, I really like the Green Bay Packers 7-2. No matter what happened with Aaron Rodgers and the COVID talk, they're going to focus on football. Coach LaFleur and the Packers, they were fined, I think, $300,000, the organization, for COVID violations. They have Devontae Adams, and they have touchdown Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be a good team. LaFleur, he's 33-8 in the regular season. They're going to get home field, and I won't say home field advantage, but they will win, in my opinion. They will win their division over the Bears and the Lions and the Vikings. So the NFC North is going to go to the Green Bay Packers, and that Rockets crowd at Lambeau Field, you know they will always show out. If they get a playoff game at home, well, they had that last year against the Tampa Bay. Doesn't mean you're going to win it, but they're definitely going to win their division. I like Green Bay. I want to also bring you out to the Minnesota Vikings. They're 3-5. They led the league in one-score games, 7, and one-score losses, 5. They're not a good team. The Vikings offense is a shell of what it was, ranked the 11th scoring and 4th in yards a year ago. Minnesota has the talent, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, but they're inconsistent. Kirk Cousins, a big contract, but do you like that? Do you like that? I don't think the Vikings fans like that right now. All fair and level war. The Vikings may just win 8 games this season. I know Kellen Mond plays this season. It's not likely third-string quarterback Kellen Mond is going to play this season, but the Vikings need to find the rest of their way around the division and try to get some defensive players, Patrick Jones, the second, and linebacker Chaz Turgott, to see if they're capable of being part of the plan going forward. Maybe the Vikings get to 8 wins this year. NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons, they're 4-4. Matt Ryan completing 69% of his passes. It's the second most accurate season of his career. But they're not consistent. I mean, offensively, Cordell Patterson already with a career high 737 all-purpose yards. Might be the most improved player in the league. Cornerback A.J. Terrell continues to climb the ladder. But the Falcons, you never know what you're going to get from the Falcons. Man, they look good on paper at times. They maybe were going to be able to win. Going to give them 8 wins this year. I mean, it's all fair and level war, but that extra game may hurt them when it comes to playoffs. The Panthers are 4-5. Coach Matt Rule, defensive team, they got beaten up by New England Patriots. Recently acquired Pro Bowl corner Stephon Gilmore to get more acclimated to that system. Sam Darnold, he's not going to be the quarterback long term. I don't know why they won't bring in Cam Newton. I mean, why not? He took you to a Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey's back in the saddle again. Can he stay healthy, though? Can Christian McCaffrey stay healthy to help out that offense? When you have a hamstring, it's hard to come back and be healthy. Missed 5 games this season. 18 of 25 since Rule took over. Not very good, not what they expected. Maybe they'll get 8 wins this year. The New Orleans Saints, 5-3. Who that say they're going to beat them Saints? Jameis Winston's out with a torn ACL. Receiver Michael Thomas missing the season. I don't know what the Saints can do. They won't bring in Cam Newton. That's a shame. They should. We know the Saints, they're a resilient team, but they have too many injuries. Quarterback Trevor Siemian looked like a competent pro the second week in a row while nearly bringing them back. And Taysom Hill, he's always a concussion away from being in the sideline again. I think running backs, they got to rely on Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. They'll probably win 10 games this year, but they should have brought in Cam Newton, in my opinion. Defending Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 6-2 with Tom Brady and the crew. They got to get their players healthy again this year, and I think they will get them ready in time for another playoff run with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Touchdown Tom Brady. He's comfortable with his offense. I mean, the Bucs are good. They average 330 yards passing per game, puts them on pace for the third most of his 22nd season. It's amazing. Over 3 touchdowns per game. Leonard Fournette's a great running back. Their defense is legit. I tell you, this is the team that just has to stay healthy for the playoffs, and they'll make some noise. They got to get Antonio Brown healthy again. He still has a walking boot. Tight end Rob Gronkowski got to stay healthy as well. And when you get that going, this is the team that can most likely win 13 to 14 games. The schedule makers were kind to Tampa Bay going in to the season. The Bucs' next 9 games featuring opponents who combined 28 wins, 40 losses. The toughest remaining games, Buffalo and New Orleans, that's at home. The NFL's best team in the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, 8-1. Just saw them over in beautiful San Francisco, and they beat the 49ers 31-17. What a team without Kyler Murray. The Arizona Cardinals right now playing the best football in the NFL. They look very solid, like a very good team, like a violin. The offense can score 30 points, it seems like, against anybody. And they get their quarterback back in Kyler Murray. I think when you get him into the mix, an MVP caliber quarterback, veteran leadership, and some luck on their side staying healthy, this is the team. Oh my goodness, they're just a solid team. They're undefeated on the road. This team is not lost on the road. Only loss came at home in kind of a fluke in the last minute of the game to the Green Bay Packers. Looking for them to win 15 games this season, maybe 14 if they have a slip up. Tell you what, an early game against the Rams, they beat them down. They're going to play the Rams this time at home, and then they also have a game against the Cowboys later in the year. They'll probably go 1-2 in those games. Number 2 in the NFC West, the Los Angeles Rams, 7-2. The Rams have gone all in on the Super Bowl. Stan Kroenke, $5 billion SoFi Stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. They got quarterback Matthew Touchdown Stafford, 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year Aaron Donald, All-Pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey, and then they add 8-time All-Pro linebacker Von Miller. At least give the Rams some praise for saying this year is our year. Give them praise because they have loaded, and they just lost to Tennessee. It doesn't make any sense. All fair and level war. The defense is legit. The offense is very capable. Look for the Rams to get probably 12 wins this year, maybe 13. And they're going to finish second in the NFC West to to Arizona Cardinals. But it's a tough division. We'll see what happens. They also have the second half of the season, the very tough half of the season. They got to keep pace with the Arizona Cardinals. The San Francisco 49ers, they're 3-5. I thought they'd be at least 5-3. They're not legitimate contenders now, especially with their big loss at home to the Cardinals on Sunday, entering the season. I was at the game on Sunday. Thought the Niners would have won that game, but they were down 17-0. And you believe or not, there's some rumblings going on about, is Shanahan the right guy? They stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback. He won't be there next year. They got to get Trey Lance in the mix and decide, let him have his growing pains this year, not next year. You got to have the growing pains this year so he has some games under his belt going into next year. When Lance will take over for Jimmy G, it should be now. Why not now? Jimmy G, again, he threw an interception again, got sacked a couple of times where he couldn't get away from the rush. Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to throw Lance in until he believes he's ready. But if you wait till next year, then you got another rebuilding year. Look at what they're doing in Chicago. Look at what they're doing in New England. Get your rookie players in now. Let them learn now that the Niners maybe will win 8 games this year. The Seattle Seahawks 3-5. They dug themselves into a deep hole. As a result, making the playoffs is a slim hope for sleepless in Seattle. Touchdown, Russell Houdini Wilson's back in the saddle. And, man, they said his finger's okay. He might give Seattle the finger and say, I'm out. It's all fair in love and war. Things were starting to look up. Backup quarterback Geno Smith helped snap a 3-game loser streak when he helped Seattle get a win over Jacksonville. And then Jacksonville turned around and beat Buffalo. But the Seahawks, they got to play better defense. They got to play better offense. The Seahawks, if Wilson returns to his usual form, they got to go to Green Bay and continue to be an upward trend. But they play at Green Bay, so could you expect more than 10 wins for Seattle? Hopefully that's what they'll get. That's just my opinion of Big C Sports, of the NFL top 32 teams in the division. Give it all praise. Give it all praise. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Houdini Brown. He is known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, you sting like a bee, you rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, with all these Big C burgers, they help me float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. That's why I rumble, young man, rumble. I'm always light on my feet with the Big C burgers. I got good food to eat. It's all fair. It's a tasty burger and it comes with all this exotic meats. It's all fair and level work. My beautiful mom that always says there's never evidence used for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day with all those exotic meats.